Happy birthday to you. Have a happy birthday. Have a happy
birthday, CreativeMornings.
Happy birthday!
Thinking how to introduce the subject, we couldn't think of anyone better than maybe the 20th century's first real workaholic. So we're going to take a second and let Charlie Chaplin introduce us to the subject, if we can get it running.
And do I need to press the button?
Get it to work.
There we go. Our recognizable stars is that he was able, through his comedy, to capture the essence and the sentiment of the people. And people related to that, and they related to say, wow, that is work. That is my work. It's exploitation. It's degradation. All right? And so I don't want to kind of bum everybody out right now, but that's, let's just recognize that for a moment.
Or is that what work is? Is it still what work is?
Yeah, and we're going to explore that a little bit more with you. So let's go back in time. And the pyramids were built, 4,500 years ago for queens and pharaohs. And there's a misconception that they were built by slaves. And that's what the Greeks told us. But actually, archaeologists now believe that there were actually about 2,000 supervisors and about 30,000 laborers. And some of those were actually quite skilled. And they lived in camps. And
they were paid, believe it or not. Juliet has told me that if we paid our staff the same way, they'd probably be happy. They were paid 10 loaves of bread and a jug of beer a day.
So John doesn't know this, but I've spoken to our accounts department. And we're going to get beer and jugs of beer, not just one jug. So anyway, moving on, it was not that similar, not that different, 800 years ago, if the math is right. In this case, it was for the glory of God and the church. And they too had skilled laborers, and they too had workers. And again, the perception was that there was voluntary work, that they were doing this for God and people would work and do this for free. That's wrong. It's very well documented that they were paid. And actually, what was happening as well is that these churches were funded by very rich individuals, okay, which were part of the authority, all right, because they were doing this to absolve their sins. So, moving forward.
Which is why, of course, we pay workers to absolve their sins.
The rich and the powerful, and we know this story, and you're going to say, Eric, yeah, we know all of this. Well, this is an image of the first factory. And so that cottage industry, in terms of work, couldn't support this mechanization that was coming about as a result of the Industrial Revolution. And so they started to better organize people, and they put it into buildings. So instead of working outdoors, like those cathedrals and like those pyramids, they're now working indoors. But it's the same deal. There's a whole lot of authority, and there's a whole lot of people that are under the thumb. No different than Charlie Chaplin. So, same again. Say, Eric, is it ever going to change? Well, we're going to get to that point. So this is the Chrysler Building. It happens to be one of my favorite buildings in New York City. And in this case, it was to demonstrate the wealth and the power. But in this case, it wasn't the church, it wasn't queens and pharaohs, it was for companies, countries, and individuals. Okay, in this case, it was the Chrysler Company. And it's really interesting, you can chart wealth and the high rises. Okay, every time we have high rises, it's because our economy is very wealthy. So, what was worth? Hey, go for it. Okay. So, John and I, we came up with these words, and we've done a little bit of reading, and it says tactical, and it says adaptable, and I just want to plant that seed in your mind right now, because you could replace these words with kind of skilled and authority and control, or the priests and the bishops, or this model has been around for 5,000 years, and even before that. So that's what we have. And our behaviors and our values and our cultures are based on that. And sadly enough, we also take this to our families. And we take this to our schools, where we're dealing with authority. So we're going to talk a little bit more, John and I, about motivation. All right? And how this authoritarian type of approach is detrimental to motivation.
So, when we started thinking about how we were going to address the subject with you,
We didn't really know what we were going to do. Like, really, we had no idea.
so we thought, in a moment of great discomfort and self-doubt, maybe what we'll do is ask our own people, in this case about 30, what came to mind when they heard the word work.
And we all understand that the physical environment can contribute to that. And that's one thing. You look around in this room, and yeah, it's like, wow, this is a cool space. I'd like to work here. They've got alcohol, they've got
Mimosas in the morning.
But I don't want to diminish the importance here. So we'll speak to this a little bit more about how we're going to redress that in our own office and what we're doing. All right, and we'll just kind of save that for the end, and maybe we'll have the drum roll for that one. Okay. And do you want to add anything more?
Well, I think what we're all looking for are not just motivated people, but of course that's important, but also, Eric introduced the word adaptable. Adaptable is really another way of talking about people that are thinking, people that are adapting in the moment to the change in circumstances, whatever they might be. Tactical are people that have a routine, and they're able to carry it out. They're not asked necessarily to think, they're asked to do something. And all of our businesses now need adaptable people, and they're not going to behave that way if they're not motivated.
I'm just trying to remember what the next slide is. Here we go. There it is here. So I should have clicked a little bit earlier. I'm not doing my work here. Okay. So again, as John was saying, we need to grow this side of it, and not just in our physical environments, but in our values and how we look at life. All right. And I'm not saying that tactical is less important. I'm just saying it's different. And when you look at this, you're going to say, wow, Eric, we've got 5,000 years of kind of being in this model, and now you're telling us to flip it around? So we're not suggesting that this is kind of like we just switch on a light and it happens. It takes a lot of effort. And what we're seeing, and you'll see this in your families, and you'll see this at work, is that, you know what, we know emotionally that this is right.
Intellectually.
Intellectually, thank you, John. We know that this is right, intellectually. Right, that I have to nurture this free spirit within my daughter. All right? But you know what? We do regress. We kind of like, in times of that stress and that, we do regress to this. And it's classic, Daddy, why do I need to get up? You need to get up because. Why, Daddy? Because you're going to miss the bus. Really,
Do I care? I'm going to miss the bus.
Yeah, that's
It's a good thing.
So my job actually in the morning is to get her day started off well. Right? My job is not to get her on the bus. Okay? That is something that's a result of starting off the day right. Okay? And I just got caught out yesterday. And so we are kind of caught between two worlds. It's going to take us time to kind of get to that type of
We see it with our clients all the time. We're perhaps working with a professional consulting firm where the partners have been entitled to larger and larger offices as they moved up in seniority, and they realize that this isn't productive, that this model needs to change. And so intellectually they get it, but when push comes to shove, emotionally, it's really hard to accept that change. And so it's in those moments of stress where we find people fall back into the old authoritarian model.
You first. The most rewarding projects or the most rewarding clients that I have as an individual, and I'm sure you'll agree with me because you too have to work with a creative spirit and innovation, and that's expected of you, are those projects or clients where you actually work with them. You don't work for them. And there's a huge distinction there between with and for. And that is a very rewarding experience. And for me, you know, sometimes we do have a choice of who our clients are, but in most cases we don't. And the most rewarding ones is that experience I just referred to. And we're gonna talk about that a little bit more here as we go forward. Yeah.
So, I don't know about your experience, but as an architect, my first 3 years out of school, I had to intern. Or I got to intern. And I was drafting, and I would show up in the morning and look at my watch as to when the next coffee break was, and then when was lunch, and then lunch was 30 minutes in California. And then lunch finished, and then it was hard to stay awake for the next few hours, and when was the next coffee break? I mean, it was just tedious. I was working for somebody. And then one day I got tapped on the shoulder, and I was asked to go meet with a client, and all of a sudden, I had my own client. And I was working with somebody, and work just became, it was just completely different. It was joyful. I couldn't wait to get to the office, and that's the difference between working for and working with. And as business owners, hopefully, we're creating an environment where everybody's getting the opportunity to work with one another, as opposed to for somebody. And one of the best experiences that I've had was with a project for Tough Mudder. Are you guys familiar with Tough Mudder? Everybody's familiar with Tough Mudder? Okay. So our project team joined a Tough Mudder event with the Tough Mudder project team before the project began. And it was a great experience. And what's really cool about Tough Mudder and their events is that they're not about winning. They're about teamwork. They're about supporting one another to completion. They're not easy. They're grueling. And to get through it, you need one another to help. And it's you want to do it together, and you want to complete together, and you want to celebrate together. And
See, they're getting paid, John. Is
that's
that
right. And the reward of completion really was incredible. And it led into the visioning sessions with Tough Mudder. With both Tough Mudder's project team and their leadership team. And as you can see, teamwork really was the theme of the day. And it was a really collaborative, joyful experience. Tough Mudder's events are raw. They're not in very refined racetracks. They're out in the middle of nowhere. They're cross-country courses. And they're very raw, they're authentic, and they wanted materials that would be the same. They wanted the history of the materials to be visible. And so the workers that put these tables together signed their names, as did staff. There was nothing, it was just very simple, straightforward materials. Except for this hallway. And yet this hallway is one of the most important things. It's cool, like most entrepreneurial companies. Tough Mudder began very small. It was the founder, a guy named Will Dean, and a couple of friends. And they began in a subtenanted building on a subtenanted floor in a little space, about 400, 500 square feet. And as they grew, they took the space next door, and then the space next door, and the space next door. And as Will would want to meet with people, he would go from suite to suite and grab people. Inevitably, the meetings started occurring in the hallways. And it became known as the Will Walk. And so as the project was done, one of the key cultural needs was to keep the Will Walk alive. And so even though obviously it shows the history of the firm, it's not the prettiest space. In some respects, it's the most important. In doing the Tough Mudder project, one of the things that came to mind was an African proverb. And it was very much true for what they want to achieve with their business, which was, if you want to go fast, so I think this is it. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And Tough Mudder wanted to go a long ways. They wanted a business that was sustainable, and they wanted really innovative people, because they have great events, but they need to do more.
Work is play. You know, it doesn't make sense, my dad kept saying, work is serious and work is hard and you've got to work to support your family. And these are all external factors. No, these are not internal factors. He didn't say, hey, go out and have fun. You know, and yet our clients are asking us for these types of spaces. You know, if there's an accountant in the room, they would probably be doing the mental math and saying, how much is that space that's been cut out of the floor? You know, really, do we need a slide? And, you know, we could fit 3 workstations there. And that, for some industries and for some people, I'm not trying to denigrate that in any way, but this is an advertising company, and you can say, well, yeah, of course, Eric, it's an advertising company. Duh. You know, they don't really work.
Good creative.
You know, and this is an internet company, and we all know this internet company, but we're not allowed to say the name. It's a bit like Harry Potter and all that. You know, and again, you know, and what's happening, and this is a bank project that we're working on here in Hong Kong, and you'll say, well, yeah, they didn't go as far as those other 2 companies. But I tell you what, they've come a long way. Well, why are they providing food, and why are they providing recreational space, and why are they providing these types of spaces? And you know, you kind of say, well, they don't say the word play, okay, but they do say engage, they do say interaction, they say knowledge sharing, they say, you know, ad hoc meetings, and they say kind of social kind of gatherings, and break down barriers. What they're actually saying is the word play, okay, it is the word for learning. They want their people to learn. And so when you look at that slide earlier about the adaptability, these people, that's part of what motivates them, is that learning side of it.
And, well, you know, obviously banks are becoming tech companies, and tech companies, we know, as banks. Taobao is a bank, and Alibaba is developing a bank. I think Google is setting up a bank. And so tech companies, or banks, just like tech companies, need creative, innovative, adaptable thinkers. It's not just rolling out products. And the play areas, so-called, are allowing people actually to access the right side of the brain. Getting out of your seat and doing something different, using your hands, playing ping pong, I don't know about billiards, but certainly ping pong, helps you access other parts of your brain. Physiologically, we know this. And so these environments, which we look like a waste of space, in fact, may be the most important space for creating creative thinkers.
You know, what here in this office, Tim and the team here, they have those stand-up type working. And again, standing up, the blood, activating a different part of your brain, being more healthier. There's a very purposeful reason there, and we need to recognize that. So now we're going to move to well, we didn't get the drum roll, but that's okay. We're going to move to our own office. You know, John related to about having more motivated people in our own offices. And today we have Audrey and Man Yi who are running that. We're doing a big pilot in our own office. We're going to be relocating in September. Okay, come and see us in September. Come and see us now if you want, and you can do the before and after. And so we can take this time, because it does take time. We're flipping that triangle upside down. So we're going to take the time and do it with our own office. And we're not going to wait till we move in. We're going to start that process now. And I want to speak a little bit with John about that process, and Audrey and Man Yi's work, and everybody else's work in our office, because they're a part of the journey. So the first thing that we wanted to do is these are people that work for us, and they all
Work with us. Work with us. See, our habits are hard to break.
So, you know, if you want to change, you need trust. Okay, before you get trust, you need an understanding. Before you get an understanding, you need awareness. And so right now, we needed to get a lot of awareness and pull these people out of their shells and their comfort zone. And so Audrey and Man Yi, they just decorated the whole office like a jungle.
We were all given a different animal. We were wondering, like, is this the way they see us? Is this like, you know, is there some hidden message there?
Yeah. So, and then we had a whole discussion with the whole office. And the sentiment there was, you know, I don't know. You know, I'm kind of quiet. It's Hong Kong. We don't say things too loud or too, you know, vociferously. So we needed to really take effort to pull these people out. So moving forward a little bit, and this captures, I think it's brilliant. We got smile, we got, oh my God, where should I be? You know, this was, I just had my medication. This was, there's a pretty girl over there that I'm checking out. I really can't do. Anyway, that's the sentiment that you have when change happens early on, is there is a whole range. And that word empathy has to come into this. So now they're questioning, is this change for real? They're still doubting our trust or our sincerity. Okay? And these activities that Audrey and Manny use is to draw out and to take down these barriers that we have in front of us. And then the next one, lovely. Look at that. Look, we got happy people. So just some of these folks, okay? We've got a project manager. We got, well, what does Lawrence do? He does a lot. We got business development. We got a team leader. We got administration. We got accounts. We got a designer. These are all the people in our office. It's not like we had 5 designers from our office come together. It's the whole schmozzle.
This is, for me, one of the most important slides, because what you see there are the comments that they have written down individually about what doesn't work in our office and firm. So for me, it's incredibly rewarding because they have enough faith and trust that it's safe to be able to say what doesn't work. And they're each given a little stamp, and so they're all stamping the comments that they agree with, so that we can begin, because we probably can't fix everything tonight, but we're on our way. And with everybody's involvement, everybody's buy-in, the atmosphere is completely changed.
So then it was a question of, well, okay, I've just kind of got in there. They want more. Okay, now it's changed. Now Audrey and Manny, the pressure is on the expectation, and the pressure is, hey, I got something to tell you. All right? I have something to share. I have something to contribute. And so what we did is we divided up our pilot office, which is about, I don't know, maybe about 3/4 of the size of this room, maybe the whole size of this room, our pilot office. And we divided the office. We had 5 different areas: the flying carpet, the chill zone, Mrs. Hulk, which was the in-between spaces, and my stuff, because we're going mobile and this technology. And so they signed up. We got volunteers. So it's not the pyramids. It's not the medieval cathedrals. All right? It's not the factories. These people are volunteering their time, their energy, and their emotional commitment.
Actually, I'm not sure what you're going to say, so I might take your thunder, but the pilot began quite small. Am I about to?
No, that's great.
It began just in a certain portion of the office. And can I participate? Actually, people were like, well, how come not my area? I want to be a part of the pilot. And so now the pilot's about 2/3 of the office. And I was like, well, that's great, but that's a lot of money, and I'm not going to spend that much money for a pilot and then spend it again when we move. So we're really going to build a lot of our own stuff. Sorry, Jim. It's just temporary. But everyone's going to be rolling up their sleeves. We're going to have cardboard screens. We're going to be building a lot of our own environments, just because it's a pilot. It's going to be about 5 months long, and we're going to explore how these different spaces work. But everybody wanted to participate.
Actually, it started off in terms of moving some people around in some seats. And then it just kind of grew and grew. And the authority in terms of going back to John for saying it's 2/3 of our office, it's not me as an expert. All right? It's not Audrey as an expert, Manny. It's more about these individuals have brought that upon this change, have brought this change upon us. The authority is actually all those people, those adaptable people. That's where the authority is coming from. I got goosebumps. Look at that. Lovely. So, of course, we've got people to show us their work. And so there were 5 presentations. They had 10 minutes each, but they didn't take 10 minutes. They took 15, 20, 25. Once you got them started, you just couldn't get them stopped. And that was a wonderful thing. Well, at the time, I didn't think it was wonderful because I was thinking, we all got work to do. But you know, I was regressing. I was regressing into the old model. Here I am, the authority figure, saying, hey, listen, you know, we got to stop this and everybody's going to go back to work. Yes. I didn't realize that what was happening was a tremendous amount of work. It's intangible and we have to measure it differently now.
It was a transformation in motivation. It was a transformation that this is their office. It's not my office it's our office.
So after Christmas, we're going to have and this is our second last slide.
Yeah, so this is our definition of adaptability, and actually it's not ours because we stole it from a lot of great thinkers. And if you think we think well, it's because we stole it. But have you guys seen the Daniel Pink video on TED Talk?
The science of motivation.
Have you? No? Some of you. I mean, it's phenomenal. If you haven't seen it, look it up. And he talks about motivation, and it's fundamentally three things: autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And we've obviously used autonomy, and mastery for us is learning and growth, and purpose. I think the great thing about doing design, and the wonderful thing about having a school like SCAD, is that it's really easy to see a larger purpose when you're doing design, because it influences so many people, and hopefully makes the world a better place. Contribution, I mean, everybody wants to contribute to one another's life. It's fulfilling. And you need recognition for doing that, and that's where our social interactions take place. Today was so great to meet new friends, hopefully, and meet old friends, and that recognition of one another is incredible and incredibly important to our own psyches. And that's what makes adaptable workers.
And so when we think of our work, and when we look at those people that we're working with, all right, these should come up self-conscious. They're kind of in there. We just help define it a little bit, but I think a lot of us can relate to that. But also recognize that we can regress. We just got to kind of say, oh, I got to go back there, because I know that's where the value is. And I think we got, we got 2 minutes. This is a 2-minute video. Do you want to have a look at the video? This is just a series of images taken through those 5 discussions that we had with the staff. So this should kind of, and then we're done. Do we need to...
Just do it again?
Do it again? Okay. So this is just a series of pictures that we're taking during those discussions. There's Audrey and Annie right there. And John and I were right here.
What about the design thinking? How is it going to design?
No difficult questions. We had a running game. There's Hannah.
I don't know about you guys, but I've been working with many of these people for over 20 years. You get to know their families and their kids. It's just I don't know. For me, the love I feel for all these people is just incredible. I hope you have that experience with your colleagues.
Talking today, isn't it the old pyramid?
Us talking today. Oh, that's a good one. All right,
Sorry.
And we're about to start Q&A.
This is the beauty. Audrey and Nanny are the ones that are leading this project, and that's it. That's exactly it. John and I represent authority, and I represent the adaptable person. Shouldn't I be actually standing up here and speaking?
Yes.
And it's really, if you really want to take it that far, that's lovely. That's a great question. Talk to Julia next time. We're done. I think there's a thank you slide, and thank you for your attention and your time. There's one rule to the Q&A, okay? You put your hand up, okay? And then I go like that, and then you do this. Watch this. Everybody watch it. And then you don't ask the question.
So we are going, we spent a lot more time on the introductions given the birthday today, so I understand completely if people need to head off to work, but it's a great chance to get to know John and Eric better. So a few questions we have time for, and then a few other things right after that.
I actually don't have a question. I'd love to invite you guys to do this presentation again to my firm. I work at Citibank, and yesterday, the last 2 days, we've just had an accelerator city mobile challenge, teams from all over the world, and they've just announced a new sort of hackathon style event called Work Smarter. So this is just perfect. It was just a fluke that I was coming along, and you should come along. And the other thing, I have an invitation to everyone here. I'm hosting a dinner tomorrow night where it's going to showcase a photographer, a filmmaker, a comedian, and a musician. So if you can write down my email and ping me, I've got about 20 seats left. I'd love for you guys to come along. I'm all about diversity. peter.williams@chicagobooth.edu. It'd be great to get you guys out there. I'll talk to you guys later.
Great.
Right over here. There you go.
So when you have such a collaborative process, how do you make sure that the end result is innovative and new and not just a watered down solution that provides a little bit of something for everyone?
Oh yeah, so I mean that's a great question, and I think that's one of the fundamental questions to good design. It doesn't prevent any one of us from pushing and saying it's not good enough yet. I think that's what we do with and for one another. So yeah, it's not giving up. It doesn't require authority to do that. It requires honesty, integrity to be able to say we're not there yet, and do it in a way that people are not hurt.
You know, we could probably sit down, Audrey, Mandy, myself, and John, and a few others in the office, and design the office, the new office, and the pilot. And my bet is that we would probably get it about 90% of the way there. Okay? And then we have to go back to them and post-rationalize everything. All right? And so the trust and the respect that John is speaking of is that we're going through this journey in this process. And we have to have the trust and the respect that the end result is going to serve our interests. And there are some things, this is not a voting exercise either, these workshops. It's not voting. We're not voting saying, how many people want this, how many people want that? It's not. And there are certain, we have to be very clear that there are certain no-go areas in terms of a technology and kind of staying ahead of the curve and growing. There's some fundamental business kind of decisions that have to be made. Now, then it becomes a question of them being aware of those business decisions and them being aware of, hey, this is how I can contribute. Thank you. I can contribute in this way. If that discussion isn't frank and upfront and clear at the beginning, then it's just going to go like that. But I thought, you know, everybody said that we would do this. So it's a great question. It's something that almost all of our clients ask us as well. Eric, I'm not sure. Will we?
Any other questions?
Oh, here we go. Look at that, a front row question. We had 2 front row questions.
Thank you. Thank you for that presentation. That was fantastic. I trace this back to education. I find I've got a son, 17, he's homeschooled, never had a curriculum, trying to do kind of what you do. But I find it interesting, well, I wanted to ask if you'd ever worked on schools, and if you did have a school, how would you address the challenge of, you know, traditional schooling with this mindset?
Yeah, really. My parents were both academics, and my thesis was on schools. We're designing our first school right now in Beijing, which is really exciting for me. I think the physical environment, again, is an influencer. It's a catalyst for change. The schools are very stuck in a particular model. I have a son who's a non-traditional learner, and it required an incredible amount of involvement for me to keep reminding the school, I mean literally, regularly, how he learned. Are you familiar with Marshall Rosenberg?
Yes, I love
Yeah, he's one of my heroes.
Yes.
So I think he's mastered really what needs to be brought to, well, to the world, but to the school environment in particular. And I mean, this is a whole other topic. But it's about leadership, it's about recognizing human needs and appreciating them. And the physical environment can support that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please give John and Eric a massive round of applause. So, you know, basically we certainly have lots more people we really want to thank. I know everyone needs to get going, but we also want to have a little bit of fun since we're celebrating. So please do help yourself to a mimosa, or just go straight like I have without orange juice. But we have a prize to give away. We have a piñata that we would love everyone to take a crack at. But for the Creative Mornings team, for our birthday present, we would greatly appreciate a group photo. So can I please ask Stephanie if you can come up here, and if everyone could kind of squeeze in this way and that way.
Happy birthday to you. Have a happy birthday. Have a happy birthday. Happy birthday, here's a happy birthday to you.